Here we are. This is episode volume 16, I want to say, Old School Law. I am Dantron, and I have another crew here. Some of them have been with us a few times, and I know they're excited about being here because I'm excited to have them. But first, I got my man over here, Wolf.
Oh,
Down below me, Endgame Arcade, again in the house.
We're in the end game now.
We are in the end game, and by the end game, we mean dessert time again. Wales coming up hot down in the dessert section.
woo! Who's ready for some cheesecake?
We are ready for cheesecake, and by cheesecake, we mean, I don't know actually where I was going with that, but I'm going to throw it back to Wolf to tell us what we're talking about here today.
Right. So I'm excited. Today we're talking about a classic. It's we think it just kind of sneaks in there for retro discussion, and that is the PlayStation 3. And some quick little, oh, there it is in all her glory. That looks like
she's looking
slim model, which came out in 2009. They did release a super slim model, which was even smaller than that.
That's the anorexic model. We call it the anorexic model. That's the super slim,
that model.
The anorexic.
Yep. The size 0.
Yep. Slash bulimic. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. And oh, look at that. And now we got another model that's being shown by Endgame. It's
that's
the
big boy
80 gig pack-in Metal Gear Solid 4 version, which was backwards compatible.
Jeez.
PS1, PS2.
Yep.
And just a quick kind of history go through, and I want to make this as brief as possible, but you know, like always, it opened up in Japan first, but not by much. I want to say like 6 or 5 days, something like that, November 11th, 2006. And then here in the States in the 16th of 2006. And then I don't even know what the hell when the Europe release was, Australian, stuff like that. But I know when it came out, it was expensive. You know, if you wanted the 20 gig version, it was $500 plus tax. And that's with no games. And then if you got the 60 gig version, that was $600 plus tax. And I think you did get a game. It kind of sucked. It was like a game where you like threw yourself around. It was a digital game. I forget what it was called, Hurt or something.
Mm-hmm.
But anyhow, there was a difference between the two models. I mean, you paid $100 more for the 60 gig version over the 20 gig, and you got PS2 backwards compatible. You got a flash card reader, okay, which I don't think I ever used in my life. I think it was set up for Wi-Fi capabilities, the 60 gig model, and you had an HDMI port, which was big time. So for $100 extra, and it looked a little different. It had some silver trim. I think it had like a tray that kind of popped up. To me, it was worth it at that point. I mean, you're spending $500, which, you know, another $100 at that point. And the PS3, I want to say, had a lifespan of, I think, 11 years, if I'm correct, right? 2006 to about 2017 is when they were starting to discontinue games. So 11 years is nice. And the PS3 was going head to head at the time with the Xbox 360 and the Nintendo Wii. I think the PS3 was a resounding success. I mean, if you look at those 11 years, it sold, I think, just shy of 90 million units. It's like 87 point something million units. That's pretty damn good. And like Will said before we had started, a big way that the PS3 differentiated itself between the other systems is it was using a new medium at the time, which enabled to store way more information on disk. And that was the Blu-ray technology. And he brought up a great point in that if you wanted to buy a Blu-ray, say at Best Buy or something, you're going to spend, you know, $900,000. And then for $600, you got a really quality Blu-ray player as well as, you know, your PS3 machine. So I think that was pretty much a no-brainer for a lot of people. People
Yep.
that wanted to play their Blu-ray movies might not have been interested in the PS3, and actually those early years probably sold a bunch of units just for the Blu-ray capabilities.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah,
that
alone, because
was,
that would save you $200 to $400 depending on which one you got.
and
and
it
then
was good, real
Yeah,
good.
it was
They say
it was good.
quality, and you could get that remote control, right?
Right. That's what I was fixing to say.
which
You
then-
came with the remote with it, and then you add on its backwards compatibility. So some people may not be into PlayStation 3 or cared about it, but they may still have PlayStation 1 or 2 games from before and displays them.
right.
So
And this will start us off, right? So I think this is important for the audience to know. Like, so the PlayStation was extremely hyped. They were showing it in 2005.
Cell process.
the-
Was it they call it the cell processor?
mhm.
The cell
suppose.
processor, it had the Axis controller, which looked like a goddamn boomerang. It was the
Mhm.
big black controller that kind of went down like this. And I believe that they showed in 2005, they showed clips of Metal Gear Solid 4. And people were like, they were like salivating because the graphics were really amazing. Because if you think about it, it's a super teaming up of IBM, Sony, and Toshiba. And I think even NVIDIA got in the game too. And the processor in the PS3 was very complicated. So I think a lot of the backlash in the beginning for the PlayStation was a lot of developers were bitching that it was very hard to program for. And it really, early on, the first year or so, it did not have great games. Really, the PlayStation started to come into its own, I want to say like 3 or 4 years in. It was hitting its stride. People were figuring out how to use the architecture of the machine. And you really started to see really impressive games, because when I think of PS3, I think of a really, really good library. And as well as the PS3 also worked with the handheld, the PlayStation Portable. So you had that talking to one another. You know, you had the Blu-ray capabilities. You had, you know, a really cool controller. Now, it didn't end up becoming that Axis controller, but, you know, it had lots of bells and whistles and stuff, the rumble feature and, you know, all the other stuff that you're accustomed to with your Sony controllers. And, you know, we're ready to talk about this amazing machine.
Yep. Another thing to add to it is it's the first PlayStation with wireless controllers. So that was a big deal and stuff, because the two still had cord control. So this time, and you didn't have to use batteries. It was just a charging system via the ports or something like that. And then another thing you talked about, a diverse lineup of games. It's the first PlayStation, since it had Wi-Fi capability, that enabled the PlayStation Store. I myself bought a lot of games that were only available, that they'd even make hard copies for, physical copies that I downloaded. And then also the since they were backwards compatible and stuff, I bought other games on that PlayStation Store that I had as PlayStation 2 or 1, and now I had access to them on a PlayStation 3 without a disc. So that was also a big deal.
Yep. And a few other quick little notes. Wolf, you mentioned the storage capacity of the Blu-rays. I love my PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2. You know, I'd get these Final Fantasy with 3, 4 discs. Yeah, it's just one disc. Everything fit on one disc, which is tremendous for the most part. Another thing, Wales, you mentioned about the PlayStation Store. The Xbox 360 had the Xbox Live, where you had to pay to game online. PlayStation, you didn't have to pay at first to play online. So you could play for free to play online, which was pretty cool.
When it worked.
Then you didn't have that extra expense. And the other thing that PlayStation copied from Xbox is Xbox had the year head start or something like that, and they had achievements, and achievements were a big thing, especially to me. So PlayStation did not have trophies at launch. I played Metal Gear Solid 4 without trophies. Eventually, they added trophies, but it was not mandatory to patch in trophies in previous games. However, Konami eventually did patch in Metal Gear Solid 4 with trophies. So the trophies were a cool thing on the PlayStation 3 as well.
One correction. It was more like 5 years before Sony got any kind of achievement versus
Sure,
Xbox
sure.
Live had way back original Xbox. But
sure.
the cool part about PlayStation 3, so I think about this like Wolf had touched on, this time in gaming. If you actually look at it, out of the 3 big heavy hitters in this time frame, which he already talked about, he talked about the PlayStation 3, the Xbox 360, and the Wii. Believe it or not, the PS3, I think hands down best system in that generation. However, when you actually talk about units sold and money, whereas it goes, it was really close with Wii. Like Wii was way closer than it should have been, and 360 was up there as well. So I think at that time, with having 3 people in the market, which was different than like the Sega, Sega, Atari, and Nintendo was together at one point. We had 3 bigger, but this specific generation of consoles, I think every single one of them hit hard. It was a great time for gaming.
Oh, yeah.
There was so much stuff that was happening. Technology was happening so fast. Things were happening so quick with development, and it was just the amount of technology in these. Like for instance, I'm touching and holding this slim model. There is nothing slim about this thing. This thing is freaking heavy. Like it looks like I'm carrying. Like it's not that. This thing I've been holding. Super Nintendos and all kinds of stuff. This is like holding 6 Super Nintendos in my hand. Just this slim. There's a lot of tech in these newer systems. Even like a 360, you pick it up. It's freaking heavy. So, but these systems are just awesome. I like the online capabilities of it. I was one of the ones, because I was an Xbox guy. I've been an Xbox guy. I was Xbox Live beta way back, right? But Sony got me when it came to Final Fantasy VII, so I got it for specific things, but I was like not buying up a whole library on that stuff. PlayStation 2 got me for a few things like Kingdom Hearts and those ones, so I'm like Metal Gear, and so I was like, okay. But then PlayStation 3, seriously, the first thing that I got it for was the Blu-ray player.
Yep.
Straight up. I bought it because, again, like you guys had touched on, it was the cheapest, best Blu-ray player out there on the market. And then once I started getting into it and how the online component is a little clunky if you're used to Xbox Live, but it still works. But I really liked their menu system, being able to do Netflix and all kinds of stuff through this one device a lot better than I liked actually doing it through my 360. So this ended up being my multimedia center before I found out certain games on here that really opened this system up for me. But they weren't launch games. They were more like Wolf was talking about. They were like 2-3 years in the life cycle where I started noticing and taking note of some of the games that were on this. But yeah, anyways, great system. Anybody else have anything else on that?
Yeah, well,
hardware?
It's funny that you said how heavy it was, right? And that's the slim. I should walk over and get Big Bertha, the version I have, the 6 gigabyte version. I'll have to get a wheelbarrow to bring it over. That thing that thing weighs a ton. That's a tank.
It sounds like me having to go to the bathroom. But anyways, keep going. I'm listening.
I have a question. You guys correct me if I'm wrong. So I touched on it being the first wireless PlayStation game. Was it also not the first PlayStation system that allowed for 6 players to play at one time?
No, two had the you could dual multi-tap. So
you could do dual, so you can go up to 8, I guess.
Yeah.
Not many games may have supported that, but I mean, just like without having any kind of multi-tap, you could have had. And the reason I say that is because we would go out and we would have guys' night back in the day. We would play with my softball buddies and stuff. We go up Monday night was like guys' night or whatever, and we would go back and play an NHL game because every single person can control one person on the ice. So you would have 5 skaters and a goalie. One of us would actually be the goalie, and it was hilarious. And the fact we could do that and we could sit wherever we wanted. You didn't have to be bound by a cord, and 1, 2, 3 the controller. And if you were player 5, it was 4 and 1. And if you were 6, it was 4 and 2. And so you could, each person, just hilarity ensued. Same thing with Resistance. We would go 4 or 5 on Resistance, and it was a ton of fun. So I just didn't know if that was the first time that it happened or what with that system.
Dude, that was as soon as people started getting more into, and we were shifting into multiplayer stuff, right? Like for years and years, up until probably, realistically, it was like 1 or 2 player. But when we started getting more party games, started around N64, Wolf's favorite system. Once it started getting that 4-player, once we started getting the 4-player, and they started to see that people liked that, and it started being more more of like a party situation, and people were coming together. It was bringing people together to play. It started getting a bigger foothold. That's why you got the multi-tap for PlayStation, and why you got the multi-tap for PlayStation 2 and all of that. So yeah, and it still goes into today now and using the internet. So it's wild how it's shifted. And I like now that they're going back to the single player narrative games versus it was going all multiplayer for a long time up until fairly recently, where they started switching back to more single player narrative games, which I enjoy because it can't all be multiplayer.
Yep,
Dan, one other thing that I think you have to point out about the PlayStation 3. You mentioned, Dan, the slow start to the PlayStation 3. Part of that was, I think, the Wii and the 360 came out first.
Yep.
But the other part was Sony was pretty arrogant with this console. They showed the $600 price point, and when people questioned, wow, that's a lot of money, everybody didn't say, yeah, but there's a blue player in there. A lot of people were like, well, why is this so expensive? The Xbox is only, what, 500? And Sony, I think their response was, get a second job. You know, like
I know
that was like an arrogant thing. I think that did play into why it was a slow start. But then the games, once the AAA Sony exclusive games started coming out, I mean, that's what sold me. Metal Gear Solid 4 only can get it here. I'm buying the PlayStation 3 to play it.
Yep.
And
Tekken
2, I think, was PlayStation only.
Yep. Tekken.
And let's not forget too, I actually like this. Was it the PS3 that had the online universe called Home?
Yes.
And you went in there and you had like a cyber version in yourself.
It was like Sims.
You
It was
danced.
like weird
Sims.
Sims.
Yeah, exactly.
Trying to talk to chicks, and you'd find out it's like a tranny or something, and it's like
Yeah.
Ahead of its time.
Yeah.
Well,
Yes.
yeah, that's gone now, though, everybody, just so you know.
Yes.
So it wasn't that good. But yes, that was it.
No. Yep. So PS3, lots of good stuff. We're ready to get this
Thing rolling.
Let's do it.
You guys aren't going to see what's going on my screen, but I'm going to go this direction. So
Nope.
just know it's going to be a surprise for you the first time around, but it's going to be Endgame up first. Start us off hot, my friend.
Nice.
I'm going to start us off hot with a Sony exclusive, one of their mascots of the Sony PlayStation brand. And the reason why I think this game's tremendous is if you've ever seen the movie The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, epic movie, really good movie until you get that battle at Helm's Deep at the end, and it just blows your mind. This game was reverse of that. The opening of this game, one of probably the most epic opening to a game I've ever played. And that game is God of War 3. You guys play the God of War games?
I might have played it. Might have. Yeah.
Wolf's check this out.
Yeah.
I spent $100 and got the Ultimate Edition. That's how much I couldn't wait for that game to come out.
Well, yeah, because Wolf, God of War 2, we talked about this in the PlayStation 2 Retro Law. God of War 2 had an epic ending, cliffhanger ending, where you just couldn't wait to see what was going to happen in God of War 3. And a lot of games, that's coming, but 5 years previously, it slows it down. God of War 3 jumps right into it. You're climbing Mount Olympus with the Titans. Zeus and his 4 horsemen come down at you, and you're just like, it's on.
Yep.
You're fully maxed out from previous God of War 2. You have all your abilities. You're just kicking ass and taking names. It was such an epic opening. But we do have to say that they also released the God of War Saga, which included God of War 1, 2, 3, and then the 2 PSP games, Ghosts of Sparta and Chains of Olympus.
Both great games. Both great games. Don't sleep on those PSP games. Those ones are dope. Keep going.
To your point, Dan, those were some of the first games that I played on a handheld that gave me a console experience. Normally, you understood a handheld. This isn't going to give me a console experience, but it'll be fun for what it is. Those games absolutely delivered. And then they also released, this would have been, most people consider God of War 4, but it's actually a prequel. There you go. God of War Ascension. What's that? The steel book there?
It is. Yep.
Yeah. So
keep going. Keep talking.
Oh yeah. So God of War 3, like I said, one of the most epic openings. Like, do yourself a favor, check it out, because a lot of times games save their very best for the very end of the game. And how many people actually get to the ends of the games? And this game just opens with a bang. The first couple hours, must play, in my opinion. Of course, you got the awesome brutality in this game. The quick time events where you just brutalize people, use fatalities on them. You got the Chains of Olympus, which are amazing as well. Chains of Chaos or whatever.
Chaos, yeah.
Blades of Chaos. Yep. So yeah, Wolf, looks like you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I mean, you really hit it, Endgame. When you say that's one of the best openings of all time, I agree. Like, when you are fighting Poseidon,
yes,
my eyeballs like popped out about 5 feet. I was like, oh my, this is like you want to talk about getting hooked into a game. And that fight with Hercules in the stadium when you get the gauntlets on each hand. Oh, I mean, you just see the visceral how pissed Kratos was in this version and how he wanted to just kill everybody. It was just so awesome.
Wolf, to your point, the visceral brutality when he takes out Poseidon, first person view, Kratos just like
exactly.
Him.
Oh, amazing.
You guys are go ahead, sorry.
Go for it, Dan.
I was going to say you're missing the most important part of the God of War series.
The nudie mini games.
It is adult themed.
Yeah,
meaning it is not for children. Opie everywhere. Just so you're aware.
That's right.
So
Opie!
Parents are watching this. Opie all over. So, you know.
Adults only.
Adults only.
Yeah. I mean, it does say M on the cover, I believe, right? For mature.
Yeah,
so,
or masculine.
Yes.
Oh, I thought that stood for many.
Yeah,
oh.
M for many. for everyone. Go ahead.
We'll be talking about this a lot. The PlayStation 3 had the Blu-ray, the HD graphics. I mean, the first time you saw these HD games blew your mind as a gamer. If you grew up playing PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, you loved God of War. Then you see God of War 3 and the graphics, mind-blowing. And God of War was always awesome about scale and spectacle, where it zooms in on your character, where you're brutalizing somebody. But then it'll pan out and you got this epic titans climbing, you got gods fighting in the background, and you're just this little ant on the screen. And the PlayStation 3 just knocked it out of the park with God of War 3. Just so good.
Definitely.
That's awesome choice. Awesome choice. You got anything on that one, Wales?
I'm probably gonna get booted from this chat if I say something. But
say it. We're all here.
I know. I have not played a single God of War game.
Wales disconnected. No, I'm just kidding.
Yep, I know. Has left the chat.
Wales, you got your PlayStation 3
I literally.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, man. My PlayStation Slim is upstairs. We were playing on other day, that's why I didn't bring mine. But I have not played a God of War game because originally I thought they were RPG games. I'm not an RPG fan. Obviously, they're not. But I
hack and slash with RPG elements.
Yeah, I just have not that I don't like those games and stuff, but it just wasn't in my wheelhouse. But I respect games like that, and I've watched other people play it in videos and stuff, and I might enjoy it once I start playing it. I do want to play it at some point, but I have not played a God of War game. And my PlayStation 5, I got the one that came with it, or not came with it, but
Ragnarok. No, you got to play the other one first. You got to.
Yeah, I know, that's what I've been told.
Yeah, you got to play.
You can't just start there. I
know. At least the one on PlayStation 4, you can play that one and then go into Ragnarok. But you really got to know where you came from, bro. That's all right.
Wales, you're a big Mortal Kombat guy. There's
fatalities,
brutalities. They got it all.
It's hack and slash Mortal Kombat. Done right.
Hack and slash Mortal Kombat. Done right. So I mean, it's on there, but I have no memories because I have not played.
Oh.
Wolf, you'll agree. Like nothing's more satisfying. You're doing a boss battle, and finally that circle pops up.
I'll show myself.
Oh, yeah.
And I know people don't like QuickTime events, but once you see that circle pop up, you know it's going to be good when you finish off the boss.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, well, I'll rectify the Wales thing. I will. I'll send you up a copy of Saga.
Oh, he can find them relatively cheap.
Yep.
It's not super expensive. Christmas.
No, PlayStation 3s. No, yeah, for sure.
Well, yep.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Is the PSP games on disc, or were they downloadable content?
They were on disc.
Downloadable, I think.
Yeah. They were the Chains of was it Chains of Olympus? I'm pretty sure. Are if not one, I'm pretty sure at least one was on. We need Eli for this because we're talking PSP.
No, I don't think either of them
are downloadable.
Yeah,
but for the
Sparta,
you're talking about to play on the PlayStation 3, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's tough. So if you get it used 9.9 times out of 10, that code's going to be used.
Right.
Yeah.
So
full trophy support for all the games too.
Yeah. And
So
Wales likes
playing
trophies.
all those
So
other games on the previous consoles.
I'm a trophy
with your
whore, so
trophies.
yeah.
Yep.
nice. Well, trophy whore, guess what? You're now the trophy spokesperson for giving us the next game. Let's go.
All right. Sorry. So I'll go with one. It is a franchise that I love a lot. Those of you that know me know probably which one I'm talking about. It is movie based and stuff. And usually, as I've said before, movie based games really suck. They're not very good. But this one was kind of a love letter to fans of this franchise. It had all the original characters in it. They all voiced their respective screen people and everything. They brought everybody back from it. And this was officially said to have been the third movie and the third installment of this franchise that we never really got. And that game is Ghostbusters, the video game.
Oh, okay.
Mhm. That's awesome.
This game was written, produced, directed, all this stuff by Dan Aykroyd, who was Ray, and the late great Harold Ramis, who was Egon in the franchise. They wrote the first two Ghostbuster movies, and it's a really fun game, a great story. Bill Murray is also in here back as Venkman, and Ernie Hudson as Winston. They had Janine back voiced it. The villain from the city that kind of goes after him, Walter Peck, if you remember him from the first movie.
Peck.
Yep, he voices his character back in this. Everybody's here except for the mayor from the first two movies. It was voiced by somebody else. Since we're kind of in Christmas time and stuff, if you've watched Christmas Vacation, the boss of Chevy Chase, it's that guy is who voices the mayor. But a great game. Also, Alyssa Milano, she is the lead actress in voicing in this.
Not interested.
Game.
I'm done now.
Oh.
No, I'm just kidding.
I was
Go ahead.
Alyssa, yeah, I wanted to get that reaction.
What, are we talking about? Are we talking about like current Alyssa Milano, or are we talking like past? Because if I live in past Alyssa Milano, I'm good.
This is gonna be past Alyssa Milano, because this game came out in 2000, and this game came out in 2009. And it's a great third person, I guess you want to say shooter kind of game, because you're having proton packs and you're going after ghosts. But this game was a lot of fun. It supported it was a one player game solo, but if you wanted to actually play online, you could have 4 people play. So you could have your 4 Ghostbusters characters represented. You play in the solo game as a new recruit, so you're going and continuing the story after the second movie, and you're trying to you go back to some previous haunts. You go back to some familiar foes, the library ghost, of course Slimers, who you end up going after first, and then there's some calls to Vigo, and then obviously some new ghost in it. It's actually kind of difficult. It does get increasingly difficult as the game goes on. Supported trophies. You had trophies where you had to do the most damage, the least amount of damage, progress through the game and whatnot. It was a love letter to the fans. Everything was authentic. Everything was from the movies. Atari was the one that actually helped produce it along with Sony, and this also happened during the, I want to say, 25th anniversary of the Ghostbusters franchise. So they added a lot of extra features to it. Being a Blu-ray player, there's a video on there where they actually find the original Ecto-1 from the movies. It was sitting in a lot just rotting, and they actually restored it all the way back to its original parts. Sony took care of it, and Dan Aykroyd actually came and test drove it and stuff, and it was actually really cool. It also came with a code when you bought the game, especially if you got it from game, the flight suits from Ghostbusters 2 with the logo and everything on it, so you could choose which flight suit you wanted to wear. It had a lot of good call outs at the firehouse. You also got to go around and collect artifacts from Ghost and everything, and it was a good in-depth game. It had good replayability. What's the word I'm looking for? Replayability.
Yes,
there it is. And the tutorial's great, teaches you how to play it, and it's just for movie games, it was really solid. It was actually solid enough to where they've actually remastered this game. It came out for PlayStation 2, 3, portable, 360. The Wii and Nintendo DS got versions, but it was a completely different game and it was animated. It wasn't all that great. But they ended up making remastered versions for the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Nintendo Switch. And my kids also loving Ghostbusters as much as they did, or as much as I do, I should say. We own the PlayStation 3 game, and we have the remastered on the Switch. And so they play together and do that. So it's a very fun game. To me, it's still the best Ghostbusters game ever made out there.
Oh,
and if you are a fan of the game and haven't given it a shot for some reason or one other, definitely give that one a shot. So any of y'all ever played it, heard of it, it's pretty good.
Never played it. I'm sold though. I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna check it out. I'm gonna look into it, Wales. Thanks. I love these Law episodes. Man.
Yeah. No,
just when you think you've seen it all. Nope.
Nope. Well, I own it, and it's amazing. I love Ghostbusters. I don't love it as much as Wales. I know it has a certain place in your heart, but I do like third person games, and that was in my wheelhouse. It spoke to me. I agree. I mean, I have, like, I want to say almost every Ghostbusters game that ever came out. You know, I even have the Ghostbusters for Genesis. But they all pale in comparison to this. I mean, this was like unreal.
Yeah,
like, I thought it was a fantastic, for a licensed movie type of game. I was not expecting much when this was coming out, and I was very pleasantly surprised. I would dare to say, Wales, that if we did a hidden gem episode, you could almost put this in there as that. Because people would see the title and write it off.
Yep.
And then it would be a mistake.
Yep.
Be a mistake.
That's why it had a big cult following, and that's why it ended up getting remastered, because there was a big call out for it, and it sold so much more than they thought it would. And it just, the story is just really good. But I mean, when you got the original OGs, Aykroyd and Ramis, writing it, and they know what they're doing and stuff, and then they're also a part of it, so I mean, they're passionate about it. It's really good. And I'll say this on a side nugget: my wife won't sit and watch me play video games at all. Like, she'd care less unless she's playing. Well, since this was a single player, there wasn't a co-op. It was only online multiplayer. She sat and watched me complete the whole story. And it took about 2 hours, you know, between chunks of playing and stuff. But she loved Ghostbusters and loved the game so much. She sat and watched me play this so she could see what happens in the story, because she was so intrigued by it.
Yep. And they did some cool things too. Like when you were using the proton packs, it would vibrate like a lot, you know, when you're trying to pull the ghost in, and you could kind of like turn, because I'm pretty sure that it had like, didn't it have like
you could choose either the 6-axis, either part of it and stuff, or you could just use the analog and stuff, because you had to stun the ghost, and then you had to do what was called slams and stuff. So you could either use a controller to like slam them, or just press L2. But you had to like stun them, so you could wangle them over to the trap and get them down. And then, to your point, it wasn't just a proton pack. As you progress through the game, you got to increase your weapons. You started with the proton pack, then you got the slime blower addition to it from Ghostbusters 2. Then you had like an EMP thing that you could use and stuff. And then he ended up having a poison dart, and like not a flamethrower, but like it was a fire ability and stuff on there. So I mean, you had different ways of fighting ghosts, because you had to use them to take out certain ghosts. So,
immersive.
Yes.
Well,
very.
And you're talking about the 6-axis controller. I own this and played this on the 360. So that's news to me. That's really cool, because you had to use the thumbsticks to control when you're capturing the ghost. So that's pretty cool. And you did mention that the story was really good. The gameplay was great too. Like you guys said, this is a movie-based game. A lot of those aren't any good. If you ever wanted, Wales, you wanted to play Ninja Turtles, right? And it wasn't that on Nintendo. You wanted to play Ghostbusters. This was it. You were playing Ghostbusters, and it was fantastic. I love the game.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great choice.
Awesome.
Hey, Wales, did you ever play it 4-player online?
I could never get people to do it, because that's like the only trophies. I said I'm a trophy whore. The only trophies I don't have on this game are online, because I couldn't get.
Guess what time it is? Guess what time it is?
Hey, mine's still fired up upstairs. So
let's
I mean,
hey,
I'll fire it up.
My guys, I appreciate you.
All right, Wolfman, you got the next one.
Okay, So the game that I'm picking is, and people are so sick of me talking about it already. They can't wait until I shut up about it. But I this game just spoke to me on all different levels. To me, it's a hidden gem. I don't know how many people played this game, or if they looked at the title and they see a kid holding a pair of golden scissors, they wrote it off as a kid's game. But this was very adult.
Yeah.
The humor was very adult. There was a lot of funny quips, and it was witty. And I don't know how I could explain this game. Well, first off, you could see in the corner here, it was made by Sony. It was their Japanese studio. Okay, they had put this out, and I remember reading something about it, and it said it was cool. It was like puppets, and they're on stage, and like you're watching. It's like you're watching a show, so you could see like the audience in the foreground. And when there's jokes being told and stuff, the audience laughs and they react. When you hit something or kill something, they go, they all like, and it's just so neat. And there's like a narrator that kind of takes you through the game. And it's got so many elements of other games, which is really cool. This weapon is amazing. It's like a magical pair of shears that you use to cut things with, because all of the game, they're all made, it looks like they're made from like cloth. They look like puppets. So these golden shears, and it has a name and I forgot what they're called, but you end up picking up that weapon first. And I play it with my son. We try to play it once a year. The game has so many bosses. If you like boss battles, so many creative levels. Larson and I talked about in past episodes, the great thing about Nintendo and Super Nintendo and Genesis and some of that 8-bit and 16-bit era is they had something that a lot of games forget to include in their games, and that's fun factor. They try for graphics and sound and multiplayer, but the game's just not fun. This game is just, you're laughing the whole time, you're having a ball, it's creative. And especially for somebody like Wales, like the collectability is amazing. There's over 100 heads, and every time that you get a head and put it on yourself, you get a new power and it does something cool. I can't really explain it more than that, in that you just must play it and experience it and try it. But it's absolutely one of my favorites. It's a platformer. It's so funny, so cool. It's actually very hard to beat too, believe it or not. But it's funny, I'm looking here, I thought it was rated mature, but it's actually everyone 10 plus, and it's every bit 10 plus, with some of the sexual innuendos and stuff that they throw in there, and just
that means they're
very
good.
cool,
that
creative
means
and
fun.
fun.
Yeah, because they faked out the censors.
Yeah, it's Dantron approved for sure.
Yeah. See, I was thinking it was going to be, at least the way you're talking, at least teen rating. But wow.
I mean, you're walking around, you're trying to get some head, and then it's really fun. Right. That's what I heard. And I mean, so I'm already sold on that game too, you guys. Like, it's already on my favorites list.
Played it?
It's already on my favorites list. Haven't even played it yet.
I have not played it, but I've heard of it from you and some others. But yeah, I'm like you. You hit the nail on the head. I was like, puppets here. Oh, you're a puppet, and you're just a kid with. Yep. I don't care.
Everybody would have said the same thing. I would have too. If I didn't see like screenshots or gameplay, I would have been like, "What the hell is this, man?" And it's to me, it's every bit a hidden gem, every bit of it. And I don't know.
You said it's a platformer?
It's a platformer.
Okay.
It's side-scrolling, beat 'em up elements, role play. It's got so many different gaming elements. It's got mini games. It's got quick time. It's got
role playing and head. Got it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, lots ahead, Dan. Lots.
Yeah,
that's what you already said. They're like 11 or 12.
He said it was like 100. Didn't he say 100 heads?
There's
hundreds of heads.
100.
Getting hundreds of head. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Have you played it?
His face is just
I have never heard of this game except for when you bring it up on Retro Law, and how you described it makes it sound like another game that I probably wouldn't have played, but I did, and I loved it. And that's a game called It Takes Two. Super creative, looks like a kid's game, but so many different elements, and it's just pure fun. And I love that game, and I'm gonna play Puppeteer. I think that sounds like a great experience that I don't typically play. And when I bring up my next game, it's the opposite of Puppeteer. So sign me up.
Yeah, I can't wait until you try it and then let me know what you think of it, because, and I want everybody that's listening to try it, because it's just one of those games that I feel fell through the cracks in a very crowded time when it came out, because there were so many good games. And if you took a look at this, you wouldn't have given this a second thought at all. Nobody. I wouldn't have. And it's just one of my favorite games of all time.
Nice.
And I played a lot of games.
Right? So, again, take it to the bank. Wolfman is not going to steer you wrong, my friends. No. He is here to give you the knowledge. And so, with that, see, everybody, you guys are coming up with all these great games, and you know what's going to happen? I'm going to share a game that's just Dantron approved. Ridiculous, over the top, just out of control. Some of my favorite style of games. It's a gun game, because that's it. So this is a peripheral episode, or this isn't the peripheral episode, but you remember PlayStation 3, they had like the Move controllers, and so I had the MP5, like you can put the Move controller in. I have 2 of those, and this was one of the most hilarious shooting games I've ever played. It's a great franchise. The comedy and just the dialogue in it is just freaking ridiculous. And here it is coming at you right in the face. House of the Dead Overkill.
Yeah.
Yes.
That game's awesome.
So, yes, if you have not... Okay, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, House of the Dead. I've played that before. No problem. Not like this, you haven't. This is something totally different, except for all the awesome stuff that you get from House of the Dead. The accuracy, the fun level layout, the colors, the sound is great, the graphics, but the comedy and the adult factor to this, because this is definitely, hang on, let me see if I can zoom it in, mature. And it's hard to zoom in there, but it says mature 17 plus.
Mm-hmm.
So, and like they were saying, like, this is everything. Wolf said everything 10 plus. This is everything 17 plus. This game here, when you're playing it, you're gonna go, how the heck did they get that in that game? You know why? Because it's supposed to be for adults. Stop buying it for your kids. Anyways, off my soapbox. But this game is freaking awesome. As soon as I played it, I didn't know if I was gonna like it, but I saw it, and I saw this game, and I was just like, you know what? This just looks ridiculous. There's this dude with like this minigun on the front, and of course the big girl on the. I was like, all right, just from the box art, I'm gonna try it out. So I never even looked at this game, never even tried it. I just bought it, and I was like, all right, well, let's just try this and see what it is, because I was at that point where I was buying, where I was buying a bunch of like gun games at that point. And this was one that I was like, all right, let me check this one out. This is my favorite gun game that's on PlayStation 3, I mean. My favorite gun game. Followed closely by Dead Storm Pirates. But this one specifically, this one is freaking hilarious. You adults out there, if you have the ability to play this, play it. This is so much fun. You will be laughing your butt off. It's a longer game, too. You're not going to finish it really quick. It can get hard, too. And there's lots of hidden things in here. You're gonna love it. If you give it a chance, I guarantee it, you will love this game. There,
a great way to describe it is if Quentin Tarantino ever made a House of the Dead video game and beat it on Grindhouse, this is your game.
Yep, that's it. Throw in some colorized bulletproof, all of that stuff. Yeah.
Zombies, of course you got to have the zombies in there.
It is definitely a very unique game. Like comic booky, Tarantino is a great way to describe it, because it is. It's like that. Like, I don't know.
Well, and Dan, like a modern gun game that I think a lot of people like is Blue Estate. They absolutely take inspiration from this game.
And 100%. You know what? Out of those two, Blue Estate's great. Don't get me wrong.
Yes.
Yeah.
House of the Dead Overkill I like better than Blue Estate.
Same.
I
Great game.
just letting you know, guys. Like, you can just like Wolfman says, if you like shooters, you like House of the Dead, you like comedy, you can take that one to the bank too. House of the Dead Overkill. Wales, I see you down there. Did you play it?
Well, it's okay. Here's my question though. It's so did you have to have the peripherals or have the move to play the game?
No, I think you can play it with
Or-
the controller too. I think you can play it with the
Could you?
controller.
Okay, because that's what would have stopped me.
Yeah.
Because anything that's a move, because I never had
can.
move. I just had the regulars. So I didn't know if you
I
had
played
to
it
have
with
a.
the regular controller. I didn't have the move.
You just use the analog stick or whatever for it, and just had to. Okay.
Get this
So
though.
that's
You guys aren't going to be able to see that, but it says 1 to 4 players.
Really?
Yep.
I didn't know that.
1 to
now,
4
is that
players.
online only, or
probably
does
online.
it? Is it?
Probably
Yeah,
online.
because that's what it says for Ghostbusters. It says it's players 1, but then in parentheses online 4. So
No, this one just says players 1 to 4. So I don't know.
okay, then yeah.
Maybe. Or you swap off. Maybe they have other like fun modes. But anyways,
Either that, or they may have a different color cursor, I guess, if you're doing or I
doing
don't know.
controllers. Yeah. But anyways,
Yep.
great game.
Well,
It
I
had,
got, go ahead. No,
it had
Endgame, go,
really
go.
over the top, difficult boss battles too.
Yeah. I was thinking I think we put out a game, the same game, didn't they?
They did.
Or something that yeah.
Uh-huh.
And I liked the PS3 one better.
Yep.
Something about the PS3 that I obviously the graphics are
Is it-
better.
Or that it's
Is
that
it- I'm
graphic,
trying-
maybe?
I'm trying to remember like the first time you meet the girl, the one that's kind of ditzy and she's a dancer and her boyfriend is like gets killed and he's unalive but he's just a head and oh dude, this is ridiculous. The dialogue is ridiculous too because it's like House of the Dead dialogue but more hilarious.
Yeah.
Dude, just thinking about this game is just make me smile.
Oh,
Everything.
That's awesome.
Boom.
That's something I'm going to try and look at because I love Blue Estate. Like Blue Estate's a great. So if you're saying this is Blue
it's
Estate
better.
only better,
Dantron
then
approved.
yeah,
Dantron
This-
approved.
this-
Boom, stamp on it.
yeah. So I encourage you with my pick. You've encouraged me with your pick. So
Oh,
yes,
dude.
that's definitely something I would like to play and try out.
Yep. All right, is that
Yep,
it?
it's good.
Yep. You got anything, Wolf, or you just? Yep.
No,
agree.
I own it. I love it. I'm not going to waste time. I mean, I
Mhm.
agree with everything that you said. It's a fun game. I actually think I own it on the Wii too. And I remember playing it like with the Wii controls and I'm like, this is just an inferior version of the PS3. And I can imagine how cool it would have been to play it like with the Move peripheral stuff. I beat it with the controller. And that was a fun experience, but I would imagine like the gun, the light stuff, that must have been so much like more fun. But it's amazing. Everything that Dantron said, it's a must play. It's Grindhouse. It is a Grindhouse. It's like watching a Grindhouse movie. So good.
Yeah.
All right, Endgame. Next, second round. Second
Okay.
round.
This one's going to be the opposite of what Wolf said with Puppeteer. He said anyone will like it. It's a fun game. This one, most people will not like this game.
Oh.
Like, it's an acquired taste. Wolf said, a lot of people would enjoy the Puppeteer. This one, mature. And the reason why, blood, intense violence, nudity, sexual content, strong language, and use of drugs. So it is not for kids. And the tagline for this game is, how far will you go to save someone you love? And we talked about how the PlayStation 3 brought, better graphics, AAA. It also brought better storytelling and where the characters could really convey things. And the game that I'm going to talk about is called Heavy Rain.
Oh.
Have you guys ever heard of this one?
Yes, I have.
Yes, have it.
Okay. So this is a narrative-driven, story-driven game with limited gameplay, quick time events, things that people hate, but the focus is absolutely on the story. There's 4 playable characters. They each have a critical part in the story. However, you make choices in the game. There's no right or wrong answer, but characters can die, and that'll affect the game going forward. There's no game over in this game. If you get one of the main characters killed in an impossible situation, well, you got that character there, and you couldn't get him out. You need to suffer the consequences, and you keep playing the game, and you get a different story. And it's not like games nowadays where Starfield, hey, we're going to generate thousands of planets for you. Well, yeah, but they're not handcrafted. This game handcrafted multiple storylines, multiple choices, multiple endings, and they all matter and they're all important. And the first time I beat this game, I was not satisfied with my ending. I was like, man, I screwed that up. And it immediately made me not hate the game. I loved it. I wanted to go back and do it right this time. And I immediately played through the game a different way, was able to figure everything out, and I just loved the game so much that I had some of my friends, they would never play this game ever, but I made them. I'm like, you're going to sit down and play this. I want to see your opinion of it. And they absolutely got into it. Mm-hmm. And this is the game where I really saw how different a game could be based on playing it, where my friend did stuff that I would have never chose, but that's what they chose. And they got a completely different outcome. And it was great. I played through it with 3 separate people all the way through. And one of my friends, he's so used to video games, right? Like, oh, save points and checkpoints. He got one of the characters killed and he immediately was pissed off. He's like, how do I load my game? I don't want to continue. I'm like, no. This is one take. It's live. We do it live, one take. You have to keep playing. He's like, no, I'm starting over. This is BS. I'm like, no, keep playing. And by the end of it, he loved it. And he's like, yeah, but I want to see what happens if I would have kept that character alive. And I'm like, play it again. It's going to be different. So just a tremendous AAA production values. The graphics, it looked real at the time for the characters. And all of the characters were so good. And there's so many twists and turns to this game. It's best to go into this game blind. Don't watch videos. Don't know anything about it. Just play it and see what you think about it. And thank me later.
Okay. All right.
Well, I could comment on that. I own the game, played it, and I love it. And I'm actually a very, very big fan of the guy who wrote and made the game, David Cage.
Yep. Okay. Sonic Dreams.
Yeah, absolutely. And every game he puts out is amazing as far as I'm concerned. Beyond Two Souls, Detroit Become Human. Yep. They're just so, and you hit the nail on the head, Endgame. His stories, they're so like, they just grab you and like you have choice, and the graphics are so real that you feel like you're part of the story. And I love being immersed in games, and I love gameplay and platformers and jumping and have control of my characters. But this is a time when it is fun to actually just be part of this choose your own adventure type of video game. And that's what it is. It's an adult choose your own adventure, and it's awesome. And you could go back, like you said, and get different endings and make different choices. So the replayability is through the roof.
Yes. And Wolf, I actually recommend playing it on the hardest difficulty. It makes the button, like the quick time events, that much harder.
Yep.
But some of them are easy to do. But then when a really extreme situation happens, it's going to pop up quick, and you got to be ready for it. So it keeps you on the edge of your seat. And yeah, you're going to fail some of those, but you got to live with it. In real life, you would. If someone pulls a gun on you, what are you going to do? You have a split second to react. And that's what this game is. If you play on the hardest difficulty, you need to make reaction. You don't get to sit there like in Mass Effect. All right, how do I weigh the Paragon Renegade? Which one do I want to go with? It's right now, it's the situation. What are you going to do?
Pee your pants.
Too late. This happens.
You're going to pee your pants. That's what's going to happen. If someone pulls a gun on you, you're probably going to pee your pants.
Well, and if you do nothing, if you freeze, like let's say, hey, do I take the gun? Do I turn around and run? What if I do nothing? There's a consequence to that. There's a consequence to taking the gun. There's a consequence to running. What's the right choice? No one knows. So you play the game and find out.
You take the gun, you shoot them, then you realize their kid sitting back there watched you shoot them, and you're like, oh.
It's a great game. It's really it's a great pick too, because it's unlike any of the games. And this is what another thing I love about Retro Law. Everybody that has gone so far has picked a game that is different in some way or another with the gameplay. Every single game that we talked about is extremely different. And I love that. So now you know, if you're listening, you get to pick a game that matches your play style. And they're all great games, every game that was mentioned, but they're all so different. And that's what I love about this.
Yep.
Agreed. All right, Wales, still rolling.
All right. So we're going to move into a franchise based, and I will pick one game of my favorite of the franchise. The first game of this franchise was released in 2001 and made its best game in the PlayStation 3 era. They've made, like I said, a total of 8 of these games, and it is a company known as Criterion, and they went bankrupt. And another little company called EA decided to bail them out and join forces with them. And the franchise I'm talking, I know, the franchise I'm talking about is the Burnout franchise.
Oh yeah.
I'm a big fan of racing, fighting sports racing. That's my top 3 ones. And this game that I'm picking is the only one of the 8 to actually get a remaster onto newer generation consoles that are also selling very well. And the Burnout game I'm going to talk about is Burnout Paradise.
Know it.
Great
I love
game.
Burnout Paradise. It is such a fun game. I do own the game. It's what we were playing 4 hours ago. I'm sorry, my instruction manual's a little not in the greatest shape.
My heart! I'm having a heart attack.
Myocarditis.
Guess what happened to that? Wolf, you would probably have had some of these issues lately. Guess what happened to my...
Oh, the dog got it, huh?
Yeah, dogs. They're awesome. No. But I love this game. This game, the reason I like Paradise the best is the first one of the series that lets you to just go open world at your own pace. It's a huge, huge city, Paradise City. Obviously, the title track for it is what? Take me down to Paradise City where the grass is green and the girls are pretty.
Yep.
That's what is your load up song. Also has great tunes within it. It's got some heavy hitters. It's got some classical music. So as you're causing carnage, you can have some Peter Tchaikovsky going. You can have some Beethoven playing. So it's kind of like that classic chaos kind of thing. A vast, the thing about this, there wasn't licensed cars in this, but there were complete knockoffs of them, and that didn't bother me, because I kind of like that, where it's you got to figure out, was this a Mustang, is this a Ford, a Dodge, or whatever. It didn't really matter. But my favorite cars, and the only ones I did, and I did pay the extra to get them, are the legendary cars pack. It was 4 cars, and they're based off movie, TV show cars. So if you own this game and didn't get these cars, you're missing out. You had the P-88 that was modeled after the DeLorean from the Back to the Future. And you know how you press the R3, the thumbstick in to be the horn or something? For the legendary cars, it gave them a special ability. And so for the P-88, if you pressed it, it would go into hover mode, and you could then drive. Yay. You could drive and be in hover mode, and you press it again, it would go back into wheel mode, and you could race. When you hit the turbo, the NOS, because as you drift, you speed, you have close misses with other cars, you wreck your opponents. It would build your turbo or nitro meter. When you do that, you'd have the flaming treads and stuff as you were going. So that was a really neat concept. The other one was the Cavalry bootlegger, and it was a white version of the General Lee on it. It had.
Are you sure the General Lee was pretty white? That was a pretty white vehicle.
Well, yeah, the driver, yeah, but that was mostly an orange car with a Confederate flag. This one is a white version, and it has the Mexican flag on it, as opposed to maybe this was the Los Dukes of Hazards or whatever.
Right. The General Juan. It was the General Juan.
Yeah. The Jose Lee, but and then the other 2 that are on there are my personal favorites. So to piggyback on my first game, they had the Manhattan Spirit, which was a clone of the Ecto-1, and so that was interesting to have. And it was a tank. That thing could, because the thing about this game was you could just drive around open world, and then it also had events. It had races. It had hot pursuits where you got to pretend to be police and take down people. It had road rages where you're just trying to cause as much damage as you could. And then it also had like a Gran Turismo event where you had like lap races around the city, and you're going through regular traffic and everything. So it was a vast, huge map. And so using the Manhattan Spirit for certain road rages was the best thing, because it was a tank and could take a ton of damage. But my personal favorite, the one I constantly use for everything, is the Nighthawk. And it was basically a rip on Knight Rider. It was Kit. And so when you would drift and everything, and you would hit up your boost, you would hit R3 and it would transform into super pursuit mode. And that thing could just fly, take everything out. And it was just had the, instead of red, it was a blue light, but it had the whoosh sound with it. So it was a great car, a great game, awesome graphics. They did a really good job with this game. And like I said, it's the only one that got remastered. Burnout, they haven't had a game, I think, since 2000, I want to say 11. I want to say is the last Burnout was like Burnout Crash, and that's the last one we've had. So it's been a while for the franchise, but if you get a chance to either play the original on 360, PlayStation 3, or even the remasters now, or I think they did PlayStation 4. Let me see about that real quick. It was
you can always tell when
remastered.
Wales is looking up something.
PlayStation.
It's like radiation.
Yeah, sorry, I have really bright stuff. Yeah, Switch, PC, and PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. That's what it was remastered for. So definitely give it a chance if you're a fan of racing games and open world and stuff. It is arcadey. It's not going to be your Forza. It's not going to be your Gran Turismo type of games and stuff. So if that's what you're into, this may not be your game, but just is a side, kind of not cartoony, but just arcade, just random game. It's a good one, and my kids enjoy it.
Yeah, go ahead, keep going, Wales.
No, I was like, yeah, my kids enjoy. Like I said, we were still getting some racing events today. That's why the disc is still in the system right now, and it's not with me. So it's fun game.
Wait till you start. I'm trying to remember. There's motorcycles in this one too, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
the motorcycle pack. There was the cops and robbers
pack.
Because
I own it, but I haven't played it a lot, but I played it just enough to know that motorcycles were crazy. And I remember one of my daughters loved playing the motorcycles, and I tried. I'm like, I don't like this. This motorcycles are so hard, hard, but it's a great game.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of fun.
So I actually like that the Burnout series is arcadey. Like Burnout Revenge was one of my favorite in the series. So Paradise, or this one, Paradise, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wasn't the big hook the online play too, where supposedly like you're playing and then your buddy could roll up next to you and you could start like an online race? Wasn't that this game?
That's it, because you could have up to 8 players online and play. So there's always 8 racers in there, so you could create a race online, and you and 7 other buddies could roll up in whatever car you want. And you can pick it. Like I said, there's road rage, there's just a race, there's the laps, there's, a run from the cops. You could all try and run from cops if you wanted to.
Yeah.
And it was just insane. It was so much fun.
Cool. Yeah, no, that great pick.
Excellent pick.
Yeah, good.
Go ahead, Wolfman.
All right.
You're up.
Okay. I'm up. Here we go. So it's the next series that I'm going to pick is a game or a series called Ratchet and Clank.
Oh my, wow.
Which is one of my favorites. And these would be all 5 games that came out for PS3. And they are...
There was that many? Wow.
Ratchet and Clank Into the Nexus. That was the most recent of the ones that had come out. Then you have Ratchet and Clank Full Frontal Assault.
Yes.
Full Frontal. Yeah, buddy, Dan.
Ratchet and Clank Future, A Crack in Time, and Ratchet and Clank Tools of Destruction.
You know what? All of those titles are Dantron approved, by the way.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Every single one.
Probably especially.
I was about to say, make sure you download the right one there.
Yep. Tools of Destruction. Yes.
Yep.
No doubt. And the best way to describe this is it's like playing a cartoon. And I don't know, Wales, if you got a chance to play Ratchet and Clank for PS5 yet. It's probably the best graphics and sound still yet on the PS5. I mean, it's just they actually brought the comic book, or not comic book, like cartoony type of style to life. It's like a Pixar movie that you're playing.
You sold it. That's how you sold it to me. And that's why I bought it. I haven't played it yet because I played the very first Ratchet and Clank, and then I just never played any of them. And now I feel so far behind because I had no clue. They made five Ratchet and Clanks just on PlayStation 3.
5.
Holy smokes.
And there's a reason for that, right? You don't make 5 games in a series unless people want to play them. So
Yep.
the
demand.
They're just great. It's like almost takes 3 elements. There's platforming, there's shooting, there's there's another element or genre that's infused in there too. It was on the tip of my tongue. Did I say
exploring?
side-scrolling?
Was there's a lot of exploring in that one?
Well, yeah.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. There's hidden stuff. I think the big draw to the game is the weapons. They're just so much fun. I mean, there's a weapon where you shoot out like sheep, and there's just such cool stuff. And there's bosses, and just the graphics are just, even for the PS3, all 3 of these, I thought the graphics were exceptional. The gameplay is fun. They're funny. They're just great games. They're just a lot of fun, and doesn't matter how old you are. You could be a kid, you could be an 80-year-old man, and you still love playing Ratchet and Clank.
Never played it.
like Kirby, a lot of the earlier games are definitely made for kids.
Yep.
Whereas this feels more like Mario. Yes, kids can play it, have a good time, but there's some advanced stuff in there that you need to be an advanced gamer to really do, find everything, tackle some of those bosses. The weapons, so amazing.
Yeah.
So which one of these is your favorite then on PlayStation 3?
I'm not sure. That's like Sophie's choice for me, because I love all of them, but I really do like, if I had to pick 2 that kind of stand out for me, it's these 2 that I would suggest to start playing. Into the Nexus and A Crack in Time. They're some of my favorites. And there's a lot of, you'll notice, because it takes place in the future, there's a lot of time traveling elements to the game, and you'll realize that too, Wales, when you play the PS5 version. There's a lot of like portals, and you're going in time, and you're traveling to different planets and stuff. It's quite extensive, but those 2 games are amazing. I mean, but man, I'm looking at Tools of Destruction, which was awesome. So they're all great. Let's put it that way. They're all great. And if you've never tried a Ratchet and Clank game, it would be a good time to give it a try, and pick any one of those PS3 games, because they're just raw fun.
Yes.
Lots of fun.
So 2 questions to that point, Wolf. So if since I'm so far behind on the story and lore, do they all, like, is there an order you should play them, or are they all their each own game?
No.
Like, they don't.
No, I mean, really, there's
like a
little
continuing
bit
story.
Of lore. Like there's some repeat enemies. There's, as long as you know the characters, Ratchet and Clank, and I think you're going to be okay. I think each game stands on its own. It's got its own story and stuff. It's not something that you need to go back and play. There's Ratchet and Clank games for the PSP too, which were really good. And I think Clank had his own game, if I can remember correctly, right? It was just him. I forget what it was called. Something Clank, something. But they're just so much fun to play. There was a really great game for PS4, and the one on PS5 was the best one I ever played by far.
Yeah, I just picked up the PS4 one for $10. Brand new, still sealed, for $10.
What a steal.
Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing game.
I text Wolf, I'm like, yeah, is this? And he's like, do it now.
Yep.
So I've like I said, I've at least played one or two of the first ones and stuff. So I want to get caught up, because it is a great franchise, great games. I just didn't know, like, obviously God of War, I've got to get caught up on that, and there's a certain way you need to play
there
those,
is
or which
some
one
lore
first.
with that, and some story elements, like,
so that's why I'm asking for our viewers that are watching this, if they haven't tried this game, and they want to get it, because it's an amazing platformer. So if just either what you got is what you got, or if you want to go back, I guess they're all independent, so that's good to know.
I'm noticing a trend when it comes, because again, like I said, I was more Xbox at this time versus Sony. Doesn't mean I didn't play some of the Sony, but some of these other ones that weren't something that really grabbed my attention fast, I just threw it off to the side. And Ratchet and Clank is one of those. I never even tried it. It's not one that was in my periphery. It's not one that I was really, like it. I was looking for something for PlayStation, and I saw Ratchet and Clank, and I was like, ooh, I'm gonna play that game. No, most of my friends were Xbox guys too, so I never had anybody like you guys now that are telling me, hey, you should probably play these games, and now I feel like a freaking tard. So it's fine. That's a great thing. Great thing about this is I can go back. I can play. I like retro stuff anyways. So I'm looking at expanding my libraries, but my weaker libraries, I do notice my weaker libraries are going to be the Sony PlayStation libraries. They just are. I don't know why it is, but yeah, I will definitely check it out too.
The reason is because a lot of these games, I mean, not some of the ones we've talked about are, first party platform, but like some of the other ones, they came out for both systems, so and the other sad thing is when these systems were around, there was no cross play. That didn't exist. So you couldn't have friends that were Sony and some friends that were Xbox, and you could both get an EA game or a racing game or something, and then it didn't matter if it was crossplay. You could play it together and be fine. Back then, if you wanted to play together, you had to have the system and that game, and that was the only way. So it was harder back then to really enjoy certain games as compared to what we have now.
Yeah, and I don't know, Endgame. I don't know if you could speak to this. Have you played any of the PS3? Yeah. Okay.
I played some of the PlayStation 3 Ratchet and Clanks, more the PlayStation 4 and the new PlayStation 5. But so like I was a big fan of the Crash Bandicoot games back on PlayStation, what was it, 1 and 2? Then they started going downhill, and those games weren't as much fun to play, and that's when Ratchet and Clank came to the rescue and gave you that gameplay that you wanted, and it's one of the staples of the PlayStation.
Yeah. Would you say that they're mascots in a way?
Yeah,
for Sony?
For sure.
Yeah, I would too.
Yeah. And to your point, the biggest selling point for me on those games is the weapons. The weapons were so creative. Like everyone, played Half-Life 2 and the gravity gun was so cool. And it was. But this game had multiple cool guns. And you're like, oh, I'm using that sheep gun the rest of the game. And then all of a sudden you get a portal gun or some other gun. You're like, oh, screw that sheep gun. I'm using this thing, So really creative with their weapons in the games.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of, and I think why I love it is because I love this series and it reminded me of it. Mega Man. Yeah. Mega Man, when you defeated a boss, you got its weapon. You didn't have that element, but the weapons reminded me a lot of the weapons that the mechs had. They were very creative and they were different, and you'd swap them out, and just really cool. Lots of fun. I just recommend anybody to at least try a Ratchet and Clank game.
Quick question: is the Ratchet and Clank on PS4? Is that a remake of one of them, or is it a new title?
It is a remake.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's I want to say I think it's a cracking time.
Yeah, so you could start with that one, Wales, if you wanted to.
Yeah.
I'd have to go look and see which one I got. I know it was $10 at Walmart, and I was like, yeah, let's do it.
Point, the story's not as critical. It's like playing a Crash Bandicoot out of order or a Mario game out of order.
Right.
Sure, technically there is an order, but it's still fun.
Right.
Yeah, because it's a great game what I have played, so I just want to make sure I'm doing it justice and doing right and stuff and do it that way. And to your quick credit, I know we're not going to talk about much, but yeah, Crash 3 was awful, and it kind of went downhill after that. But then PlayStation 4 Crash 4 came out.
Yes.
It righted the shit. But that's another time, another day.
Yep.
Future retro law.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely. Exactly.
Cool. Well, I'm up now, right?
Yes.
Let's do this, Larson.
Okay,
what you got?
I'm going to start it off with something back here, which is the hint.
What?
So this is a hint for the game that I'm going to talk about, and it is definitely another mature rated game. You know what? I like a lot of these mature rated games, it seems, but this game in particular
you approved.
Okay, so this game had a lot of turmoil in its development. It did not develop well. There was lots of rewrites and revisions, cuts done. There was a lot of things going on behind the scenes. This game almost didn't get made a couple of times, and I'm so glad that it did get made. I would say it's a hidden gem, only because not a lot of people know about it, or they saw it and they just kind of like, But if you played this game, this is a beat 'em up, third-person beat 'em up. I would even say with hack and slash elements to it.
I would.
Some RPG type stuff, because there's unlocks. You know, you spend you spend stuff to unlock different abilities, but it's gonna be. I hope this is a hint for you. It is Splatterhouse. So I got this, and Wolf will show you the PlayStation 3 version. But I got this pre-ordered, and I actually got it on Xbox 360. But when we do the 360 episode, we're going to talk about other stuff. So I wanted to talk about this on PlayStation 3 because between the two, I played them both, and actually the PlayStation 3 version I think was better. Yeah, see, Wolf and I, yep, we're the same, samey. Only you got better hair. So, anyways,
it's like a mature version of Casey Jones.
Yeah. So Splatterhouse. Oh, dude. So I just got to tell you. So Splatterhouse itself. You think you know the game. Everybody's, for at least at some point, have seen a Splatterhouse side scroller, like 2D. This goes into the 3D realm now, finally. And there's other multiple ways to play it, and it actually kind of gives you incentive on playing the different modes, because there was another mode which was basically like a bunch of rooms. You just pretty much like a survival mode where they're just throwing enemies at you and enemies at you and enemies at you. But that's the only way that you can get certain pieces of pictures to create the pictures of your girlfriend that had been stolen. So but the best part about this game actually is not only is the gameplay really well done, there are finishers like fatalities that you can do on certain creatures, but the story and the dialogue between Rick and the Mask, freaking hilarious. Like I lost it. I laughed so hard I had to pause it. The first time I hear where the Mask tells you, "What's that, Rick? This sounds like Jensen Trouble. Let's go." And I'm like, what the frick is going on? And it's like, dude, it's so hilarious. It's so good. And there's another layer to it where once you realize that Rick is just broken mentally by this freaking mask and what's going on in his mind, and like who Jen is and what she is at this point, when you eventually, I'm not going to spoil anything, but as you go through and some of these things start to open up and develop in this game, you're going to go, oh, this is a lot more than just a beat 'em up. There's a lot of cerebral stuff in this one too, and I dig it. So, but there's been nothing out there like this, like story-wise and gameplay-wise. I have not found anything like this game yet. And I love it. I like playing it again. They need to re-release something like a remaster of it. Give me it on Steam or something, because it is just awesome. I mean, if you saw some of the stuff, I don't know if you can see, like freaking chainsaws. You get your arm ripped off. Look at what game can you get your arm ripped off? You take damage. There's chunks of your body hanging off. You got like your ribs showing, and you pick up your own arm with your other arm, and you start beating creatures with your own arm, right? And you throw it at somebody, and then you can regenerate. But dude, everything about this game, it just goes further and further off the deep end, and I love it. You know what? It's like, just take me off. Not like, oh, I want to stay away from the edge. I'm like, nope, let's go. And I just jump off, because this game is just amazing. Any of you guys besides Wolf play this one?
I have not, but you mentioned, is there any other game where you rip off an arm and beat someone with it? Well, Resident Evil 7, Ethan gets his hand sawed off, and he just puts it right back on. So no, I played the arcade version of the game, and there's hints of a story. So this intrigues me that there's actually a real story to it.
Oh, yeah.
Now, the Splatterhouse on the arcade is very difficult. So how is this game in terms of difficulty?
I would say it's not super difficult, actually. I would put it more on the medium hard difficulty range. I wouldn't even say it's hard. It's not.
Really?
I wouldn't even put it up there on hard. The hard part about this game is, and there's replayability, so you can beat it and you play the game again with all of your unlocks that you still have, so you can unlock more abilities, and so it incentivizes you to unlock more abilities to be able to beat things faster and survive longer in survival mode and stuff like that. But it is, so that's where it gets hard, is if you want to start unlocking stuff and getting your, as Whale puts it, his trophy horse stuff. If you want to start getting that, that's where the game gets hard. But for you to play through the story and get the story done, I would put it more on the lower hard, higher medium range. I wouldn't call it. I wouldn't necessarily even call it a hard game to beat. But it is, and there's some not only replayability, but it's kind of a longer game too. It's not something that you're going to beat really, really fast, like you would think that it's a beat 'em up. We're just going to beat it fast. No, you're playing this for quite a few hours to try and get through it, and especially if you're trying to get all the unlocks. Like when you start unlocking pieces of your girlfriend and you start noticing, oh, she's in some role play outfit. Wait, I want to see all of these pieces of this picture, and so to try and get that stuff unlocked, freaking hard. So, but anyways, that's my thing on that game. I love it.
Sounds cool.
It is freaking awesome. You get a chance, definitely check that one out for sure.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and it's probably the most blood and gore I've ever seen in a game. There's times where you're like in a room and you got to take out multiple like these like monsters and stuff. It looks like just an absolute bloodbath massacre. There's blood on the screen. There's blood everywhere. It is really brutal, but I think the best part is the dialogue and the banter. It is just so much fun. I mean, some of the stuff, you know, can get a little repetitive. There's some of the missions that you have to like clean out. I don't know what they are. They're
like cysts. Like cysts.
Yes, exactly. That got a little annoying after a while, that stuff. But aside from that, the game is without a doubt a hidden gem. It is so much fun. It's a blast. Absolutely recommend you playing this. It's a wonderful pick.
I'm going to leave you with one last thing. I'm going to read a little bit off the back just so you can get an idea. All right. Bloody, brutal monster violence. Hardcore gore, devastating weapons, extreme horror, gruesome splatter kills. So, oh, by the way, here's another piece. I forgot about that. Killer metal soundtrack, including Mastodon, Lamb of God, and Five Finger Fruit Punch. It's Five Finger Death Punch. So there you can unlock all 3 original Splatterhouse games as well on this.
Oh, nice.
Ooh.
Yep.
That's awesome.
And the story was done by comic writer Gordon Rennie. So who was this one? Judge Dredd, basically, the guy that
nice.
So and then here we go here. So what it says on the back is blood and gore, intense violence, nudity, sexual themes, and strong language. So if that isn't enough with the talk that Wolfman and I just gave you to at least try this game out, I don't know what there is.
Yeah.
100%.
I'm like in-game. I've only played the arcade ones, and hard as balls and stuff.
Yes.
God, I love it. Such great games. And I was going to ask you that, Dan. I was like, I want to say when I've seen people play this, doesn't it have killer sound effects and a badass like score or music with it? So yeah, you absolutely answer that question before I could ask it. So yeah, I mean, imagine having that type of gameplay and stuff going on, and you've got that kind of music going on with it. That's just freaking
you're rocking out.
Awesome.
Dude, the first time you run in there and you do an ability where you pull a bunch of your blades out of your arms and you slash, and it's dying breed going on. And you just, it's so good.
Yeah, you're just it's like T1000 times 10.
Yeah,
like it's just amazing the stuff. So now knowing that it actually has the original games on there as well for you to unlock.
Yep.
That to me is worth the price too. So I mean it's a great franchise. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna check that one out for sure.
Yep.
Well, like, you know, mature blood, violence, that only goes so far. It's really cool, right? But like a game like Mad World on the Wii, really cool to see that stuff at first, but pretty shallow game. This sounds like there's a lot more to it.
Yep.
A story, there's awesome soundtrack, there's really cool unlockables. It reminds me of Ninja Gaiden when on Xbox, where you could unlock the Ninja Gaiden 1, 2, and 3 NES games. Like that's amazing. So makes it worthwhile.
Now I just gave you a bunch of the dessert. I'm going to give you a little bit of the veggies. There is a few quick time events. Now,
I'm fine with quick
but they're done. But they're done well, because most of the time it's like a quick time event to do a finisher or something like that.
Yeah.
So kind of like God of War style. So just
quick time event, the whole game.
Yep.
Yeah. So anyways, great game. Endgame, you're up, buddy.
Man, this is almost like a Hidden Gems PlayStation 3 episode.
There's so many games, dude. There's so many games.
Let's get it back to some of the heavy hitters. And this series is a Sony PlayStation 3. It was born on the Sony PlayStation 3, and 3 games of the trilogy came out, and it was developed by Sony. And that's, of course, the Uncharted series trilogy. So have any of you guys played the Uncharted games? Any of them on PlayStation 3?
I got
everyone
all of them.
I've beaten.
Yep.
So
I got the box.
These games,
that box set.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That was the
I've
thing.
got.
I think on what PlayStation 2 and PlayStation 3, they would group the trilogies of games.
Yep.
Yeah, I have the third one from somebody. So.
Oh, so you never actually played them?
I've not played them and stuff, but I do have the third one.
Yeah. So the awesome thing about these games is it really showcased the HD graphics and the power of the PlayStation. Like the animations of like Nathan Drake running around, stumbling over rocks on the ground and stuff were tremendous at that time. The half tucked in shirt was pretty cool. Seeing that he'd get dirty and stuff, wet when he goes in the water. It's basically Indiana Jones crossed with Tomb Raider, where you have it's a third person shooter action game, but then you had exploration, a lot of puzzles, which was my favorite part, was figuring out the puzzles. You pop open your journal when you hit the pause menu and you can see all your little clues and stuff. The witty banter between Nathan and Sully and Elena and Chloe, just tremendous. Some of the things that the weaknesses of the game though is I feel like there's too much shooting and killing people and not enough exploration and puzzles, because it does turn into a video game by the end where, hey, here's 100 guys that I got to kill. This is the final level. And then you got this crazy boss fight at the end that isn't maybe quite as memorable as the characters themselves were very memorable. And that's the thing on the PlayStation 3. You got really memorable characters on a lot of the games and the franchises. And just the witty banter, like I said earlier, about the characters, you just wanted to sit there and listen. I know I could go through the door and continue on with the game, but I want to hear this conversation, what they're having here. It's very intense and interesting. So, yeah, let me know what you guys thought about the Uncharted games.
They're amazing. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
They're amazing. Also, the Uncharted that's on PS Vita, freaking awesome too.
Yep.
That game, yep. So any of the Uncharted, you described it perfectly. I'm not even going to say anything else. It's Indiana Jones and Tomb Raider.
Yep.
But I do have that one complaint too, is that sometimes it's like, why am I killing 50 guys in here?
Yeah.
Why are they here? Like all of a sudden, why are there so many guys just standing around in this one spot? And I got a pistol. All right, well, let's go.
One thing I forgot to mention, the other thing that the Uncharted games brought to the table were epic set piece moments. Like no one will forget the train in Uncharted 2 when you're climbing up that thing, or the plane, the cargo plane in Uncharted 3, where you're battling in the back of a cargo plane and you get thrown out of it. Heck, in the Uncharted movie, they basically recreated that scene, and just really great, memorable moments and characters. That's what I liked most about Uncharted. The exploration, not necessarily the fighting. It's totally fine, serviceable, gets the job done, but all the other things make the series really stand out, in my opinion.
They also did well with the scope. You remember climbing up some of the walls, and he would stop and just look, and you can look around, and you could see like you're just over the top of a jungle and the canopy, and you just look around, and you're just like, wow, this is cool. You just move around, and you just all that kind of stuff. It was very, very cool, very well done. And you'd think that, it's kind of an Indiana Jones, Tomb Raider-ish, so everything's closed in. And there was a lot of closed in stuff, but there were lots of big open areas too. That was and it was a really good mix of feeling claustrophobic and then also feeling open. Even though it was still linear, there wasn't a whole lot of exploration in there, but there was some. But those instances I remember a lot, as well as the dialogue, but just the scope of being able to see how everything was. Great choice.
Yeah, I had two quick comments about it. First off, I love the series like everybody else. Amazing. Every game I've played and beaten, just fascinated with it. I just like that trope of like Indiana Jones and they're trying to find a hidden treasure, little history based, like Drake's Cross and like, all that stuff. But I will say that the gunplay is kind of weak.
Yeah.
It is kind of weak. Like you'll be aimed on somebody and you'll shoot him in the head and then he's still alive and you're like, what? And it's just, I don't know. It's everything else was great about the games, but they didn't put a lot of effort into like the weapons and the gunplay. But one of my favorite games in the series is the one with the two ladies. I forget what it's called. That game was incredible. Talk about scope, like Larson said. I forget what it's called, but right, it was for the PS4.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
it was so good, and it was just interesting because you didn't really have Drake, right? You know, you were with the two ladies, and they're off on this adventure, and it was really cool.
And it works because they established both of those characters so well in the original trilogy.
Yes.
So you cared about the characters.
Yep.
You know, not just your character because you're killing all these people and having fun. You actually cared more about the characters, like I said earlier, like where you wanted to spend time with them.
Definitely.
Yep.
Cool. Great choice. Great choice. Wales, your last one, buddy.
Last one's round 3. So to piggyback on what Endgame said, we're gonna start hitting some heavy hitters now, some big names as opposed to our hidden gems. So my last pick is from my favorite franchise of all time. Those of you that know me already know the game. This one was not the first installment on the PlayStation 3. It had one before it, and it's preceding games on the PlayStation 2. The first say trilogy or so of this game or franchise, they were amazing games in the arcades. Once it hit the home ports into PlayStation 2, it started to really fall off and not be so great. Then its first iteration on PlayStation 3 was absolutely atrocious. Absolutely atrocious. And I have the game just because I'm a completionist with the franchise, but it was just absolute just dog shit. I'm just gonna say it's a dog shit. And this game, when they the way they put it out is kind of a rebirth of the franchise, and it did just that. This game had a installment just released not too shortly after, and it's also still molded after the type of style and gameplay from this game, and it is Mortal Kombat. And this is the 9th installment of the franchise.
Like a reboot.
This is a reboot.
Soft reboot.
Soft reboot with the story, and it's absolutely amazing. They went back to their roots with this, but just updated the graphics. My combat pass here that I obviously use, my add-on download with all the character skins on here, and then the catalog to buy other impressive new stuff for the system or for the franchise and stuff. But this game put everything back where it needed to be. Put it back to where everything from that made the first 3 games great with the characters, and then they've made it right with the gameplay. They went back to a 2D type of fighting. They added extra moves. They introduced is where the X-rays got introduced. This is where they did away with the fighting stances. It was just you went back to just punching, kicking, special moves, air chain combos, and of course your fatalities that just now became these cinematic events and just over the top gore. And the story with it was absolutely amazing. Ed Boon and crew did a fantastic job telling how they would go forward within this. And then also not just the story mode, which was amazing in it, the roster. Man, this roster was great because this brought you back. Basically, it was an ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 update to the PlayStation 3 time with consoles, and it was just so well done. And then also another part that I enjoyed just as much as the fighting was they brought back the tower where you had to go through the 200 levels and get all 300. The way to was it 300? Okay, I can't remember if it was 200 and 300, but I know 300 was you had one life, you picked your character, and you had to go against Kentaro, then you had to fight Melina, then you had to fight Shao Kahn without dying, and it was pretty crazy. It took me a while to do it, but it got done. But it was just such a great game, and then that molded into MKX, and then of course MK11, and now we're throwing it all back to MK1, which is what just came up. But this one set the bar to what it is now, and without it, I don't know where we'd be honestly with Mortal Kombat right now, because we were so down. And the one I'm talking about, the first one, is Mortal Kombat versus DC, the only Mortal Kombat game to this day that is not M-rated, it was teen rated. So
yeah, and they also fixed, well, right around that time, because remember, like earlier, Mortal Kombat 4 and stuff, they tried to do the 3D kind of
3D,
thing.
yep.
They pulled all that when they started, and they went back to 2D kind of side scroller. I mean not side scroller, but 2D plane fighting. You know, you could still rotate slightly, but it was pretty much back to the way that Mortal Kombat should be. So it wasn't like War Gods or anything, but I love that game too. I think that game is great. I have that on my PS Vita actually, because I liked it so much I had to take it with me.
Same.
So good.
Yeah, that was the cool thing about it, was they also, those the first Mortal Kombat that you can get downloadable characters, and that's where they introduced Scarlet.
Yep.
They brought in Rain with it, and then the other two characters this is where they started the non-Mortal Kombat characters, and I'm not going to get on my soapbox on that.
It was Freddy Krueger, right?
It was Krueger, and then I guess maybe I did play God of War because it was Kratos.
Yeah.
And he was awesome in that game. Kratos was a Billy badass. And I did enjoy playing Kratos in that game. But yeah, it's tons of fun. And so it's I'm sure all of y'all have played it and have your thoughts on it. But I'm glad they did what they did with it, and I'm glad we're where we are now.
Yes. Definitely a great choice, Wales. I love Mortal Kombat 9. Like you said, the previous one, Mortal Kombat versus DC, not good at all. The one thing though I did enjoy about that game was the first introduction of the story mode. And I love how Mortal Kombat 9 refined that and knocked it out of the park. And basically it's a staple in fighting games now. Before that, fighting games didn't really have good story modes. So Mortal Kombat said, no, we're making this a AAA story mode. Yeah, you can do your fighting. You can do your online and stuff. We got the crypt here. It's amazing. We got this 300 challenge tower. It's amazing. But the story, we want to tell a great story. We want you to care about these characters because these are awesome characters. And I loved it. I love the story mode. And the challenge tower was great. There were so many random things. Like one time you're fighting 3 Goros and you're like, this is impossible. You finally beat them. And then the next one, it's like zombies are running at you and your striker shooting them with your gun, like a side-scrolling thing. Or Kun Lao throwing your hat to decapitate them. You're like, what is this? This is crazy. So much fun. And yeah, like the fatalities are all there. You don't have to pay extra for them, you unlock the fatalities. You got the stage fatalities, and X-ray moves. And Dantron, this is the last Mortal Kombat with Dantron approved Melina and Katana costumes too. They've true. Covered them up since then.
Yeah,
lame. Yeah, Scarlet was awesome. Scarlet was awesome.
Was dope.
Yeah, Melina. This was the one that had the bandages. That's right. Yep. I remember. Yeah,
had the bandages, and this was the last one with jiggle physics. They took some Dead or Alive notes, and after that, they
downhill. Forget it. Get it out of here.
And so to piggyback on what you said, Endgame. Yeah. The MK, the only thing other than the story mode arc that they, as you said, just branched off and completely refined it, was without Mortal Kombat versus DC, you will not have the Injustice series.
Right.
Because that showed how well that they could use the DC characters. And I'm not a DC fan, except for Batman. That's the only one I care for. But without, as well as that game did, and then choosing, they found out that fans really wanted a superhero versus superhero game because they were picking Superman versus Flash, Batman versus Superman. You could end those arguments, and Superman was so OP'd in that game. But without that, there is no Injustice series, and the Injustice series is fantastic.
That game, the Mortal Kombat versus DC, almost killed the Mortal Kombat franchise.
It did,
but at the same time, it saved it because it made NetherRealm Studios go, we have to double down on Mortal Kombat, the fatalities, the M rating. We have to do that. The fans hated this. But to your point, well, they do like the superhero thing. Maybe we do both. And how awesome was it alternating? Mortal Kombat 9, then Injustice. And Injustice refined the story mode even further. And then when Mortal Kombat 10 came out, the story mode is even, really good in that game too. And then Injustice 2. Like, such a great game. And I just love Mortal Kombat 9. It's probably my favorite in the entire series because it reboots the entire, like the previous, 8 games before it. But yet it doesn't erase any of that. It just gives you a clever story, how they can reboot it, bring you back to the original trilogy. You get to see all those characters, all the story moments, But how we rebooted it, we get to change some things too. So you don't know exactly what's going to happen. And then they continued the story on. So good.
Yep.
All right, Wolf.
Also,
Okay.
the babalities in it were hilarious.
The babalities. Yeah, what was
and if you're really good,
was that
you
the
could
one?
do it to bosses.
Wasn't that the one where Raiden, like little baby Raiden, went wow and shocked itself and fell over?
Yeah.
It was
Sub-Zero. I think like had wet his diaper or something and ended up freezing behind it or under him, and he slipped and fell and cried.
Yeah.
Or if you were, like I said, if you're really good and you did certain moves in a certain way or something, you could actually do babalities to the bosses. So doing it to Kentaro, he turned into like a kitten or something and drank milk, or Shao Kahn with the whole "you suck" as a kid and everything, and it was hilarious. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great choice.
Yeah. Good choice.
Thanks.
All right, Wolfman. Last one, buddy. Well, at least for this one,
Endgame.
until a supplemental episode.
It better be good.
I'm gonna punch everybody in the face with this one.
All right.
We talked about heavy hitters. Endgame said now it's the realm where we're bringing out the Titans. I'm bringing out a Titan.
Yes.
One of my favorite games. Okay. The storytelling aspect hooked me. The two characters were endearing and I cared about them. Some of the best graphics I've ever seen up to that point. I was blown away. The gunplay, amazing. I thought it was fantastic. They really nailed it. And the game is The Last of Us. Dun, 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 dun. There it is.
I got that one
you
too.
got a steel case copy, a remastered copy.
Yeah, I have the remaster.
PS4. Yep. I can't begin to tell people how great this game is. It's I love the second one. I know it caught a lot of flack when it came out. You know, people did not like Abby, and
great game.
It's a shame, and they didn't like that. And I don't want to give away any spoilers for those people that want to play it, but people didn't like Ellie, okay, and who she became. You had a lot of people, a lot of ignorant people that wouldn't play the game because of it. And I'll just leave it at that. You could do your own research about it. But the two characters, Joel and Ellie, and the storytelling and the bonding that they have and the adventure that they go on in this post-apocalyptic story, where you have this kind of this fungus that kind of like spread and turned people into these kind of like zombie-like creatures is fantastic. And they got to get from one part of the country to another. And you hear about their adventures and they're talking and they're trying to get to know one another. And at first they don't like one another at all. And by the end, I don't want to give anything away. You'll see what happens with their relationship.
Dad jokes.
Oh my goodness.
So good.
Yeah. The pun, she gets like a pun book.
Yeah.
Halfway in the game. It's just, it's a must play. I know I speak a lot and people will laugh when I talk a lot in hyperboles, a lot of, big adjectives and all this stuff. But it was a groundbreaking game by Naughty Dog and Sony. It's a landmark achievement. I know when it came out, it was getting reviewed. It was getting 10s, which was unheard of. Like, it was critically acclaimed, and people that played it like fell in love with it, and it spawned shows and side shows from it. I mean, it really took on a life of its own. And to this day, I will beat it every year. And I have gotten every single version of it, which is ridiculous. The Last of Us, The Last of Us Remastered. They came out with another one on PS5, which I don't know. I mean, they added a couple things, but I know that the Last of Us Part 2, they're really going to give you a director's cut, lost levels and a rogue element type game that they're going to add in there. So like that to me is cool, but it's a must play. I can't say anything more about that, but I'd love to hear the three of your opinions on it.
Go ahead,
Who wants to go first?
Go ahead, Endgame.
All right. Well, we've talked a lot about a lot of amazing games on this episode of Retro Law. In my opinion, this is without question the best game. It's one of the very best games on PlayStation 3, one of the very best games ever made. We talked about God of War's opening being epic. The opening to this game, phenomenal. Phenomenal. You live through these characters on their everyday life, and you get to witness the outbreak. You don't know what's happening. Cop cars are going by. People aren't answering their phones. All of a sudden, someone jumps out of this car and jumps on a guy, and you're like, what is going on? And when it started hitting me in that opening sequence was when you're playing the daughter, like this young girl, and there's these people on the side of the road with a baby, and she's like, Dad, stop, let's pick them up. And he's like, oh, hell no. And you're just like, wait a minute, we're just letting those people with a baby out here to die? Like, what is going on here? And then there's people, and you're just running them over, and like you're just getting out of the way. Like, it is pure chaos, just like it would be, and you have no idea what's happening. And the it's so emotional right away, where it punches you in the gut in the opening sequence, and then you play the game, then you start the game for real, and you're just like, oh my god, like so good. So I have more to say, but I want you guys to talk too.
Wales, what you got?
Again, I've got it, but I have not played it.
Yeah.
Where's the remove button?
No,
I know.
You'll play it. So
this I'll be honest, this system I only got through maybe the first, because y'all talked about 11 years of it. By the time I got PlayStation 3 close to end of 2007 or so, I only got about 3 years of use in it, because then that's when I ended up having my family, and my game playing days and times were eaten up and stuff. And so I went out probably, I think Grand Theft Auto 4, when it came out for PlayStation 3, was the last game I want to say I played up until February of this year. I didn't own any consoles. I didn't really do many game playing. I'm not going to get too personal or anything about it, but I had my 2 boys, and we've had some complications and stuff. So I didn't get, the game playing time as much as I would have liked to with the Gods of Wars, the Uncharted, the Last of Us, and stuff like that. So are these games I would have played if I had the time? Absolutely, because they're just banger games. But I sadly don't have any personal experience with them.
Oh yeah. That's why we do these retro laws. Everybody can't play every game. There's too many games.
Yeah.
That's why when knowledgeable gamers like us recommend it, like, give it a shot. See what you think. If you don't like certain games, quit playing. Play a different one. This game, you'll get hooked right away.
Yeah.
Like I said, I have the third one, so I need to do the first one, the second one, and the third one. I have to do these in order.
So
for sure.
So for me, it's kind of hard. Most people don't see this. I actually have 2 Last of Us posters over here. That's how good.
Love it.
That's how good this game is. So, all right. So my wife, I'm going to give it to you. So my wife, she is not huge into newer modern games. She likes side-scroller, 2D, platformers, Super Nintendo, regular Nintendo. That's her style, right?
Yep.
So this is the first game that I was playing, and she stopped what she was doing and sat down just to listen and watch the story. This is the first time, I'm not exaggerating, this is the first time I can even remember in my history of playing video games that I wanted to play a game not because I wanted to unlock something or get some weird achievement. I wanted to play this to advance the narrative of the story. It is that freaking good. Like, this story right here is it punches you right in the gut, and it continually kicks you. Like there, and then it makes things worse as the main characters develop. You start to develop feelings for other people, and they'll seem like a main character, but they end up being a side character. But you get to the side characters you get to know and you get to love, and then something happens, and again, boom, you're stomped again. And it's just, that's the world that it was. Like, that's the world they created there. And you feel like you're a part of it. You don't feel like you're actually playing something. You feel like you're experiencing a movie and you're part of that movie. And I agree with you. This is, I will say this straight up. This is the single greatest video game as far as a narrative goes that I've ever played in my entire life. Like, I'll tell everybody, and I'm not even a big Sony guy, but as soon as I saw this game and I played it, Hands down, I have never played anything as good as this. Like, I can't even look through it and go, yeah, I kind of didn't like this part. No, everything, the crafting, finding materials, searching, stealth gameplay, gunplay,
stealth.
all of these things, all of these, the leveling up of your abilities, all of these things are all done so masterfully in this game. And you add it to the actual story that is there, that is part of this, and it's just an amazing series. I mean, like, Wolf, I'm so happy that you decided to bring this up, because I would have brought it up if nobody was going to bring it up.
Me too.
This is as far from a hidden gem as you can get, but those that know about this game, or that have at least given it a shot, just freaking play the game, dude. It is so good. So good. Like, Wales, I can't wait till you start playing it. And this is one, seriously, have your wife watch you play the first, let's just say 20 minutes of it. Play the first 20 minutes of it, you and your wife, like you're watching a 20-minute show. Just sit down, and I guarantee you that you are going to be hooked. It is so good. Awesome choice, Wolf.
Thank you.
So Dan, you mentioned it's not a hidden gem. I would call this a system seller.
Yeah.
Like, you buy the PlayStation 3 to play this game. I had 2 friends that did that. Came over to my place. I'm like, you have to check this game out. Just play the first hour of this game. They played it, bought a PlayStation 3.
Yep.
They were Xbox guys. They were Nintendo guys, not PlayStation guys. Bought a PlayStation 3 after playing a couple hours of this game. A system seller. There's other things about this game that are tremendous too that we haven't even talked about. There was a really good DLC for it, Left Behind DLC. There's really good multiplayer. The factions multiplayer. Like, I was huge into Gears of War on my Xbox, played my multiplayer stuff on my Xbox. But like we mentioned earlier, it was free on PlayStation. So let's try this factions out. You know, I'm sure it's not as good as Call of Duty or Gears of War. Oh, it was even better because you had to play it like you played the game. It rewarded you for crafting, stealthing. If you just run around, you're going to get shot and killed. Like, it rewarded you, and you wanted to play it like you played the game. And it was a very, very good multiplayer mode, I thought.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, go for it.
I was gonna say the DLC actually is where the spin, what Wolf touched on, where there were some ignorant people that didn't like it for certain story. That's what they had the problem with, is the first game never really goes into certain aspects of it, but the DLC does. And then the second, and it becomes such a huge part of the second one that sadly people didn't give it an opportunity, but they're missing out on so much wonderful story and narrative and characters, and there's love and there's beauty in these things, and they just, you know, I just don't understand it, but that's what happened. Is like, it was almost, some of the people that complained, it was like they thought it was a bait and switch, like the original game didn't have any of this stuff, and now you're giving me all this other stuff that I didn't necessarily want. And that's not what it was. You got to pay attention to the story. That just the story, the narrative is what it is. And so, but I loved everything about these.
Yeah.
Well, Dan, like you mentioned that some people didn't like that, you know, the Left Behind DLC. I had a friend that absolutely loved the game, 10 out of 10. He did not like the ending. And the ending, I would say, is a divisive ending, but it's 100% earned.
Yeah.
Like, all the choices, the character moments, 100%. That's how, in my opinion, it would go down. And it's heartbreaking and it's intense. But to me, it's faithful to the entire game. You played on this journey with these characters. Like, what, Ashley Johnson and Troy Baker, they're great voice actors as Ellie and Joel. And it's just a tremendous journey. Like you guys said, there's a key point, like halfway through the game, where it flips things around and you are super vulnerable and super emotional. And it's like, whoa, what am I playing here? And there's really deep takes. Like, some of the characters are great characters and some of them not so great characters. And it's everything you would want, like a game like this, because it's putting you in a place where you want to believe in humanity and you want to believe in everyone, that it's good and we can get through this. And then you see some of the ugliness that comes out, and it's fantastic,
dude.
Fantastic.
And you don't know who's good or bad either. That's
Right.
the thing. There was multiple points in this, playing this thing, that there was one in particular I remember. I straight up stood up and was like, oh heck no, that's not happening. Like, seriously, and that I'm not emotional like that when it comes to playing video games. I like straight up stood up and was like, that is not happening. And I was like, then we just, it's such a good game. Yeah, I can't say it enough.
Yeah, one quick point. We could all agree that this was a quintessential game and a system seller, like you said, Endgame, and it spawned TV series and toys and all sorts of stuff. So, but all of the ignorant people, like Dan said, that wrote off what was going on with Ellie missed out on. And if you like The Last of Us, Naughty Dog doubled down on The Last of Us 2. They improved every element of The Last of Us. The crafting system, the combat, the stealth, the graphics, all of that stuff was improved. The only thing that I think was maybe a little bit less was the story. I think I liked more in The Last of Us, but I still really loved the story in The Last of Us 2. But if you think about it, I mean, it is gory and graphic, the type of kills, and just, I thought they did a fabulous job with the exploration and making the levels a little less linear and giving you a little bit more room to kind of branch out. They really improved on a lot of elements of The Last of Us. And I thought that, I know we're not talking about that game, but I really enjoyed that game as well.
Well, Wolf, to piggyback off of that, when I finished The Last of Us, even though to some people the ending wasn't satisfying what they were looking for, I thought the ending was perfect. And I did not want another game. I'm like, they'll just mess it up. This is such a perfect 10 out of 10 gem of a game. I don't want them to just make a bunch of sequels and water it down.
Yep.
And the second one delivered. They had a great idea for a story. My only complaint with the second one isn't necessarily the story. It's a little long. There's a portion in the game that I think goes on a little long, but outside of that, I think the second one's really good. And one other thing about the exploration, Wolf, that you mentioned is the environmental storytelling, top notch in this game, where there's banter with the characters, kind of like in Uncharted, where Ellie and Joel are bantering, stuff. But then you'll get this tender moment where you'll explore this house. Oh, I want to find some ammo. I want to find some crafting gear. And then you'll see a note. Oh, this is like a suicide note. This is heartbreaking. And then you'll see, a little girl in a bed, and you're like, oh my God. Like, and then you'll see the dad, and you'll put two and two together. And it is not at all important that you see that. You can easily walk by that place and never even know that exists. But if you take the time to explore, and if you're playing on the harder difficulties, you have to explore, like, because you don't have enough crafting stuff to get through the game otherwise.
Dude,
it reminds me of like the old school Resident Evils, where if you're wasting your ammo, you're not going to be able to finish the game. That's how I felt playing this game. Like, I need to craft, I need to find all this stuff, I need to search. And then they rewarded me with that environmental storytelling where I'm like, oh my God, this is so sad. Like, I don't know these people, but this situation is so heartbreaking.
When you get into like that area where there's like, and people will know when they get there, I'm not spoiling anything, but there's like a nursery, and you're like, what is going on here? And then you start reading notes and stuff, and you realize like, oh, this was a safe spot. This was, oh wait, you start getting these notes. You go, oh, everything ended horribly here. Oh no. And then, and it gets worse, and it keeps getting worse. And you're like, but there's so many of those freaking moments in this. And it's not just shock moments. These are narrative, like, this is what the world is. And it's just so good. Just
like Bill's Place.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
Well, we didn't even talk about the enemies, right?
Nope.
Like, the clickers, such a great enemy. Like, they're vicious, and you can't easily take them down. So it's better to stealth around them and try to avoid them. But they hear sound, so you got to be very careful if you see broken glass or
you're grabbing stuff, throwing it. Yeah, you're throwing bricks, trying to distract them and all that kind of stuff to get out.
Loaders.
Yep.
Well, and then just the humans, they're the worst. Just like in The Walking Dead, right? Like, humanity sucks.
Is the worst. They're worse than clickers. Yeah. So,
such a great game.
Great game, and we spent quite a bit of time on there. So guess what? This is my show. Well, I'm kind of doing it with you guys, of course, but I think we're going a little bit long. So I'm going to cut my own last game because I'm going to cut my last game. I'll do it.
That's unheard of.
I'm going to do it in a supplemental episode. This is a great spot to stop on games, I think. So I'm just going to pull back. I just feel it. I feel it. This is a good spot to stop. So
Okay.
The Last of Us.
Let's go. Yeah, dude. Yep. The Last of Us. We have to end with The Last of Us. So what I want to say though is we're now to that point where we're going to talk about collectability for the system. So the couple of the criteria that we're looking for is the cost of the system, the ease of the system to find, the cost and ease of the game, and then just how does it hold up. It's still on the newer side of the generation, so we already know it's going to hold up real well. But what I'm going to say about this system is I'm going to start off. I'll start here because I didn't have a game, so we'll just work around. And I think I usually start off first anyways, but whatever. So I'm going to start off, and for the reasons where the system is still very affordable, it's very versatile. You can still use it as like a multimedia center. The graphics are still great. You can find the games very, very easy. Most of them are still pretty cost effective. Some of them are getting spendy. Like even the one we talked about, like Splatterhouse, you think, oh, it's just kind of like that. No, that's going to be $50-$60. So there's some games you'll find for $20-$30, but there are some that they're getting up there in price. They're getting harder to find. But all that being said, I'm going to put this in the category of an A- for me. So the reason why I'm going with that, again, is the cost of the system is still pretty reasonable and what it does. But again, some of the heavier hitters like Puppeteer, start trying to find Puppeteer. That's what I'm talking about. So I can't give it a straight A grade because, some of these heavier hitters that we're talking about, yeah, you might be able to find The Last of Us relatively inexpensive because there's tons of them out there. But there's some of the other ones it's starting to get kind of pricey for some of these games that you're going to want. So, but that's why I'm shifting it down just a little bit to an A- for me. But so what do you think in there, Endgame?
Yeah, to me it's an A. I mean, like for all the reasons that you said, everything is easily to find for the most part, like all the heavy hitters and stuff. One of the games we didn't talk about today, but will definitely be talked about on another future Retro Law PS3 episode, is Metal Gear Solid 4. That game, as of the time of this recording, is only available on the PlayStation 3. There's rumors it might come out on a future collection, but I mean, that's a AAA blockbuster game in a franchise that's one of the best franchises, and it's locked on this system. So if you want to play it, you have to play it here. The only reason it doesn't get an A+ for me is because a lot of these games are HD remasters that are going to be on current consoles. Like you can play a lot of the Ratchet and Clanks, the Uncharted's, the God of Wars, The Last of Us on future consoles as well. But the eShop store is still open, so you can still buy games on this system. Whereas some of the older systems, those are closing down, like on the 3DS and the Wii U and stuff like that. Whereas you still have access to pretty much all the games at this point. And like I said, or like you guys mentioned, the Blu-ray player still works, so use it.
All right, Wales.
Yeah, absolutely agree. It's systems. It's not. It's like I said, it's kind of at the cusp of retroness, right? That we discussed before. But I mean, I still play the system daily. It's in my entertainment room. I went to go play. I thought my game was still in there. I think I was working on one of the WWE games and stuff, and I went to go boot it up, and freaking SpongeBob started playing because my son put a DVD in there, and I didn't know he was watching it. So I mean, like you said, it's still versatile. Plays DVDs, plays Blu-rays. The games are, you can still find them. And I didn't know, I was hoping to get Splatterhouse, but geez, for a used copy of $50-$60, it's like, ugh. But that's how some of these things are. It's once you get past the 10 to 15 years of existence, then it starts going up there for the less printed games. So I mean, I would agree with an A or even an A-. Obviously, I'm probably the most quiet one on this episode because I just didn't really get to play much of these games, but I would definitely be into playing them, and especially still having a system that works. So it's a good one out there, and I'm got a lot of time to catch up on.
Oh, and one other real quick thing: the if you got the 80 gigabyte one where you can play the PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 backwards compatibility, it's a must.
Mm-hmm. So listening to everybody, I'm gonna say, it's a wonderful, I think, system to collect for. And like you said, Endgame, you pick up one of those systems and then you're playing all your old PS1, PS2 games, no problem. You don't have to hook up an additional machine. Controllers are really solid. There's good peripherals for it. I'm still seeing PS3 games everywhere I go, and I do a lot of flea market hunting for games, and they're quite prevalent. But what you are seeing is a lot of, like Wales, like you said, a lot of the niche, low print run good games like Lollipop Chainsaw and Shadows of the Dam and Puppeteer. Those games are 65, 70, $100, like already, like starting to get that high. I can't imagine what another 10 years is going to do. But like Endgame said, or I think Larson, you could get all of the games that we talked about, like the God of Wars, cheap. You could get The Last of Us. You could get Metal Gear Solid. You know, you could get these games at a relatively good price. So I'm kind of torn, but I don't know. I think I'm going to side with Dan. I think I'm going to go with an A- as well. I think you're starting to see people are finding out that there are some bangers. The library is incredible. I think it's becoming more and more collectible. And as that happens and people start collecting this more, it's going to put more demand on games and it's going to start driving up the prices. So I would say get on it now. If you're interested, start picking up some of these titles, because in another 5 to 10 years, it's going to get really tough to collect for this.
Cool.
Well said.
Yep. Very well said. So, like every other episode, I want to thank everybody for coming and hanging out with us. Endgame Arcade down below. Check out his channel. Give him a like, a subscribe, all of those fun things. He puts out great content. Very well done. He actually edits his stuff, not like me, right? I'm the one take guy, even though I'm probably going to change a little bit. He's rubbing off on me, not that kind of way. Don't be dirty, but I'm just saying, rubbing off on me a little bit, and because I love his stuff. So do yourself a favor, go and check out his stuff. If you like video games, you like retro, you like anything, he does so much stuff when it comes to video games that you will enjoy it. You're going to find something that you will like on his channel. I guarantee it. And then Wales.
Thank you.
Wales, man, what can I say? I love having you around. You always freaking crack me up. You come up with some great knowledge on things that you catch me off guard sometimes, and I don't know why you do that, but you do. You catch me off guard. You said you didn't get a lot of time on the system, but you had so much good knowledge that you could share on this, and I greatly appreciate you coming here and hanging out with us. And then, of course, to my man Wolf, I mean, what can I say? What can I say? You and me on this fantastic voyage, you know? And so I just love having you guys with me. I love, Wolf, you being able to just ride with me on this crazy journey that we call life and retro law, and I just really appreciate every single one of you guys that are here. And then, you know, anybody out there, if you like the content on here, just, you know, even if you don't like it, I've said this before, just give me a like and a subscribe. I mean, it takes, Wolf will say it, I'm stealing his thunder, it takes 2 seconds. If you would do me the honor, I would greatly appreciate it. It helps me drive more content to bring out to you. So I would really appreciate that. So thank you.
And just to piggyback on, or not piggyback, to add 2 things, I want to talk about our friend Endgame. You know, his stuff is great. I'm a big fan of his stuff. Matter of fact, I just watched one of his older episodes that kind of like slipped right through my fingers. He did a top 10 Super Nintendo games that meant something to him, and it was cool to see that, because we just got done putting out 3 episodes for Super Nintendo, so it was really cool to see that. Super knowledgeable, great guy, give you the shirt off his back, and knows tons and tons of stuff about games. And you know, we're trying to get him to 1,000. But you know, Dantron, what can I say? You know, good friend. I love all of the stuff that he's done. And even if I wasn't doing the show with you, I would say I would be a fan of what you do, because at heart, you're a gamer first and foremost, but with your charismatic personality and humor that you add and how you bring everybody together You know, you're always trying to get us to play multiplayer games and just have fun. And, you know, you kind of changed my life with that because, and I'm not going to go into a long-winded story, but I never played multiplayer games before I met Dan, ever. I was a loner. I played all my games by myself. They were all one-player games, unless I had a friend over and it was couch co-op. So he kind of opened me up to this realm where then I had to buy the PlayStation online, you know, which was $100.
Had to buy it.
Best move I ever made because I love it. It's opened up all sorts of avenues. But I guess what I'm saying is he's constantly reinventing himself, and you know, he's also has a very big presence on Twitch. I was watching a Twitch thing that he did yesterday for a video game that just had come out on Steam, which is really cool, multiplayer game. But you know, Dantron is always doing stuff like you know, keep your eyes peeled. He's got some cool retro things coming down the pike soon. And like I said, I mean, for both guys, for Dantron and Endgame, it seriously is no skin off your back to hit like and subscribe. Even if you never tune into their channel again, you've helped them out. You've enjoyed what you just watched. Maybe it's not your cup of tea. Like and subscribe. It does nothing. It's not going to hurt you one bit, and it's just going to help these guys to put out even better content, and I'd appreciate it. And just keep your eyes peeled for my buddy Wales, because once he gets his machine hooked up, I'm hearing there's going to be some really cool things coming down the pipe from him. Do I dare say maybe even a YouTube channel? Who knows? Keep your eyes peeled, folks. The only person that's going to be plain ass, you know, not changing, not going to be adding any social media is me.
We need somebody to guest on our channels.
I'll guest all day long, but I'm too old to get into this game. But they're amazing, great friends. I don't know what to say. I had a ball, and I hope people tune in, and I hope we get more than 14 people that watch these premieres and stuff. Because like Endgame said, it's a shame. There's a lot of knowledge out there. We just got to hit that right algorithm and get people interested. So whatever.
All right.
Sure. Well said.
Oh, well.
Yes.
Oh, well.
Oh, well.
All right, you guys. Well, again, this was a great episode. And until next time, later.
Peace.
Take care, everyone.